Hello, everyone. We're very glad you're back. Today, Lance wants to bring to you his insight on prayer and on meditation.
Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to My Divine Light. You can get further information on our website at mydivinelight.com. And there's also the book that has exercises in it, which is called You Are Divinely Made. Okay, she's going to show you a picture of it. Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about prayer and meditation and practicing the principles of love, I would have to say. Okay, so first of all, as a reminder, now we covered in detail there's the video My Divine Light Form and the video My Divine Light Soul. And in there we discuss in a little bit more detail about what the mind is. And I want to just briefly reiterate about the mind, because we call ourselves co-creators, but in reality we don't really create anything. The mind is an image maker. And whatever we put into the mind projects on the one God substance and projects as forms. It becomes what we call mind constructs, and it forms all the quantum particles, the atoms, the molecules, the cells, and all the combinations of particles that is formed and projected by the mind. And then we sense that with our five sense mind, and that's what we experience. And so the mind is, the soul is this part of us that chooses what to put in the mind. And whatever we put in the mind projects outwardly, and then we experience it. So we're not really creating anything, God gave us as souls the power of choice to put into the mind whatever we decide to put in the mind, and that will project, and we will experience that projection. So that's kind of why we call ourselves co-creators, but you can see we're not really creating anything. We're just choosing what to put into the mind. Now we can put the stuff that comes in from the world, we can choose to put that in the mind and we can have those experiences, or we can choose to go within and bring out God qualities and put those in the mind, and then those experiences, God experiences. So God is the one that creates. All his creation is within us, and we can bring those into the mind and have those experiences. And that's living in the kingdom of God on earth. Or we can take what the world is telling us about what life is and agree with those as they come into the mind. And so we allow those to come into the mind, and when they come into the mind, they project, and then we experience world experiences, which is mortality. And so we're really choosing between mortality and immortality. So now we have been, for many thousands of lifetimes, caught up in the mortality side of it. The side where the world is telling us that we live in a material universe, in physical bodies, and our lifespans are short. And they have problems. And the world has problems. And so we've been listening to that information and following that information. So we're in the habit of using the mind to project the things of the world. And that habit has got us intertwined with world concepts, with world ideas. And that has got us kind of locked into that scenario. And what we want to do is we want to learn to bring the qualities of God into the mind and project those and have those experiences. And those are all good experiences. And they have no opposite, so it's not like the stuff from the world that even though the stuff from the world may be good, some of it, it's going to have an opposite of evil or chaos or suffering. If you have good health, you're going to have bad health, either in you or someone you know. And so it comes with the pair of opposites, the world suggestions. And when we allow those in, we experience that. So we're trying to learn to bring the qualities of God, the stuff that God created. So we call that part, the human part, the world part that's coming into our mind, we call that human creation. And that creation is a mortal creation. And it's temporary and it as far as the bodies are concerned, they're born and live for a while and then die off. And it's pretty much like that with everything in the world. Even the universe itself, in the mortal concept, is going to pass away. Everything the mind produces will pass away, but the difference is the qualities of God always remain within us, and we can constantly replenish them once we learn to go within and learn to bring those out into the mind. So God has given us these qualities called meditation, prayer, and what we call practicing the principles. And we use these, and these are tools that we use to learn to bring God qualities into the mind so that we can have the God quality experiences. In reality, meditation and prayer and practicing the principles have nothing to do with God. God has created a perfect universe. That universe is here now and is functioning. The only problem is we haven't learned yet how to operate the mind correctly to get what we really want out of the mind, to really experience what we really want to experience. And so these meditation and prayer and practicing, those are there to help us do that, but they don't have any relationship with God because God only sees his perfect creation. But our soul, which stands between God And and form, our soul stands between God and form, and it knows about the prayer and meditation. It understands that that's a tool. It understands that the soul's caught up in the mind and is in a kind of a trap inside the mind, and it knows that these tools can help us move out of that so that we can have a better life. We can have God quality experiences. So, meditation is one way to begin, and that's when you find a way, first of all, to quiet the mind and the body. And there's thousands of different methods to do that. But the main point of it is that you want to learn to be still, to still the mind and still the body. And we do that, first of all, by withdrawing ourselves from body and mind. And so when we sit down to meditate, the first thing we should do is remind ourselves, I am not the outer expressions. I am not my world experience. I am not my body. I am not my intellectual mind. I am not even my feelings. I stand behind these outward expressions. I express as these outward expressions, but I am not them. They are an expression of me, but they are temporary, and I am eternal. And so you're kind of, and there's a video about this too, also called My Divine Light Identity. So if you have a chance, you might want to look at that. Identity, because what you're doing is you're withdrawing out of the outer expressions into your true self, your true eternal self, and identifying with your invisible self. So that when you say I, so you remind yourself, I'm not these outer things. I am the invisible one who stands eternal and who is constantly and consistently the source and the cause of these outer expressions. And so tell the world and the body and the mind and even the feelings, be still. Go back to this I that I am and say to the outer expressions, be still. And if you concentrate on it, you can let that feeling emerge out of you through your feelings, through your mind, through your body, and out into the world. And you will feel it taking place. And it doesn't matter if the world is making noise or if the body is trying to say this part of me hurts, or if the mind is having thoughts. It's not about that. It is about telling it to be still and feeling the stillness of it. And so that's your first step in meditation. Get still. Not so much in the outer, but within you, in your consciousness. And so you're getting back to where you have the authority and telling the outer parts, be still, it is I. See, that's what Jesus said to the storm, right? When the storm was raging, he was on the ship, and the disciples came and woke him up, and he said, be still, it is I. So that's what it means, is get back to the I that you are, your true I. If you say the word I and you think of the body, then you're in the wrong identity. You are identifying with the world experience and the world body and the world mind, and when you do that, you're proliferating those experiences. And the whole idea is to withdraw out of that so that you can now change those mortal experiences into immortal experiences. And the first step is to get back into your true identification, the I that's invisible. Understand that that's where the authority comes from, and tell the outer, be still. And just feel it calm down. Now, you can do certain things like watch your breath, watch it and listen to it, and if you do that, it'll take your mind off of the outer expressions and help you withdraw into that I am soul. I am soul. I am the window of God's grace. So that's the first part of meditation. Getting calmed down. Figure out what works for you. It could be listening to the breath. It could be you just watch your thoughts go by. You just watch and be the observer without being part of it. Just observing. So like I said, there's thousands of different methods for it, but you want to find something so that you can get still, so that you can be aware and awake to your inner self, the soul that you are. And when you wake up into that, then you can go in where your God self is. The God self, each of us has a God self. God gave himself to us as ourself, our individual expression. And it is our guardian angel in reality. What people call their guardian angel, that's really your God self. And it's here to produce for you perfection and to help you in transition out of this mortality into your immortality. And it is present, but it doesn't work. It doesn't really, it's working, but until you're fully aware of it and understand how it works, it's not going to be any benefit. Just because it's here, it won't benefit you until you become fully aware of it. I want to say activate it, but in reality, it's already activated. It's already functioning. It's just we've been misusing it. Because we don't know how to use the mind, we didn't really know what the mind was, and we were just sitting by, living our life, not understanding that we decide what our life experience is going to be through what we choose to put into the mind, or what we allow to come into the mind. And so this God that is within us, this God presence that is within us, which is our God self, each of us has our own personal God. And it is with us. But we have to establish a relationship with it. And that's our soul. Our soul has to do that. Our mind can't do it because the mind can never know God. All it knows is what we put into it. The mind in itself knows nothing about God. And so it only knows what gets put into it, and then it projects it, and then it gives you the experience of it. That's all the mind is. And it knows nothing of the rest of what is behind it. And so it's the soul, and that's why it's important. This meditation is so important, is because we have to go in and establish a relationship with this inner God and develop a relationship with it so that we can learn to bring those qualities into God. Now, I think Patty has something for us.
I have a question.
Okay.
As you were just pouring out your heart, I brought your poetry book.
Oh.
So everybody could have a surprise today.
Okay.
And I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, would you say that you would relate, I am the flaming spirit of God's grace? Because you wrote this, and it's exactly what you're talking about. You're talking in a meditation to God.
Right, okay, so we'll read this, and this is just an example of when you get into your soul and you start to develop this relationship with your God self, your inner God, the God-given God to you, then you begin to talk to this God, and this God begins to talk to you. And this is some of the stuff that comes out. This one is called Whispers of Spirit. I am the flaming spirit of God's grace. I carry the torch you alone can see. As I lie alone in my bed under the falling stars, it is for you only. Only you can see and know it. It comes alive when I whisper in your ear. My invisible self whispering to your invisible self. Do you hear the soft moving of waters? Do you hear the soft billow of the tall grass waving at you? As if to capture your attention with tender urgings, without the bothersome words or works. To many a day passed without the answer. Too many a day passed with the call to arms, to brightness. Too many days without response, without saying yes. Can you hear what I am saying? I have brought you the flaming torch of love. My beloved friend, you the beloved one. It is yours for the taking. I keep nothing. I give all. I want nothing. I hold nothing. Can you hear the stars twinkle? Listen closely. Can you hear the far-off wind? It is so far away, and yet, if you listen closely, you might hear what it is saying. As if it would whisper your name, softly calling you, alerting you in its quiet signal, without gesture or trial, without the tiresome demands. Too many a day has passed without acknowledging. Too many a day passes and nothing is said in return. Too many days you have sat glibly by. My torch lights the way without delineating. It lights the day without radiating. I whisper and pass to you this fiery love. I whisper your name. I whisper that I love you. I whisper that you are magnificence and omnific. And you belong to us. You belong to the heavens. You belong to the silent urgings of the night. You belong to the quiet, sibilant, swishing intelligence. Grace be told, yet without principle or technique. Behold, it is before you, untouchable. Okay, that was very nice.
There's more to it. Could you say
It's
this,
kind of a long one, but I'm sorry.
could you say this works for prayer as well as meditation?
Yeah, that
To
is
your
really
invisible God self?
that is really an example of the type of thing that you will hear once you get into your soul and start listening to what your God self says. And so we're going to talk about that. And that's a perfect example of what can happen when you start to develop this relationship with your inner God. That those are the types of things that God, your God, is going to say to you. So first, you have to learn to develop that relationship. And the first requisite to that is to understand that there is this God, this inner God, that God gave you himself as a personal God for you. And that God expressed as a soul, which expresses outwardly as these outer manifestations of feeling, mind, body, and world. And so we already talked about you withdraw out of the outer expressions during your meditation and get those quiet, and then once you're in your identity of soul, turn within and listen. Listen to within yourself. And you might have to tell yourself, be still and know God is here. Be still and listen to what the Spirit says. Things like that, whatever comes to you. The words aren't important, but what is important is that you're telling yourself to listen, and you're following that instruction. And so you learn to listen within and to shut out the things in the outer. And that's really what meditation is all about. Now, there's degrees of how deep you go within, how intently you listen. And as you develop this relationship with your God self, that God self is going to draw you further and further in. as you become friends with it, and it is your friend, it is your best friend that you'll ever have, and once you develop that relationship with it, it'll start drawing you deeper within. And the deeper you go within, the more its voice will speak to you. At first, you probably won't hear anything. At first, you probably won't receive, it won't seem like you're receiving anything. But don't worry about that, because you are. Once you learn to listen within, you are receiving, even if you're not seeing it in your thoughts and your body action, or even in your feelings, maybe. Typically, it starts with you get a feeling of it. You start to feel that presence. And so that's the meditation part of it. And of course, there's a lot more could be said about that, but today we want to just kind of cover all the basics so that everyone can get started. And that's what it's about, get started. You don't go forward until you take a step. So you have to get started somewhere. And so we start with the basics. Now prayer, so the meditation part is about listening. The prayer is the developing of the relationship, where you sit down, and again, you should always try and get quiet, but prayer is when you are talking to your inner God. When you say, God, help me in this situation. Help me know who you are. Help me know what the truth is. And a lot of it is really talking sincerely, being your true self, and sincerely talking to God, and realizing that He's listening. I can remember times when I sat down and went, you know what? This is a nice creation and all that, but there's parts of it I really don't like. So, be open and honest. Don't say, oh, you're all pure and everything, and it's great. Yeah, well, that's true, but...
Have a dialogue, a real dialogue.
A real dialogue,
Talk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You want to be totally open and honest with your inner self, because it's really you're talking to, your real self, but it's a God, and it's not immortal, so don't get those two confused. The outward expressions are not us. So develop this relationship. And so prayer, it's not just when you sit down and pray. Prayer should be constantly throughout the day.
Unceasing.
Unceasing. Pray without ceasing, St. Paul. Every time you face a situation, say to God, what is this? Why am I experiencing this? What is going on? Help me understand. And help me get through this. It's not that God knows anything about your problems, but your soul knows. And when your soul pours out its heart to God, then what you're doing is you're putting new things into the mind, and those things are going to manifest. Those things are going to project in your mind, and you're going to have the experience of them. And it starts a little at a time and then develops over time. The more you do it, the more you improve at it and the more results you see.
Does having gratitude and joy and the expression of the gratitude is another way to just, if there's nothing bothering you or worrying you at the time?
Well, yeah, gratitude is
Just
another
love.
prayer. It is prayer.
Yeah.
Because like if you take a drink of water, if you're thirsty and you go get a drink of water, you should have gratitude that your soul has produced the need of the day. You don't really need water. The body doesn't need anything. The body isn't anything of itself. We decide what the body is. But since we think the body needs water, our God, through our soul, and remember, it's the soul that knows the mortality part of us, so it provides the water. And so we should be grateful. Thank you for this water. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to ascend. That's really what we're here for, is to follow Jesus into the ascension. And not just Jesus. I mean, there's been thousands and millions of others, really. And so we want to follow them into the ascension. And everything in our experience is giving us the opportunity to do that. So we should be very grateful for it. And when we are, and let our God, inner God know that, we're grateful for this. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this body that's operating. Yeah, I told it, unknowingly, I've been telling it that it decays and dies, and that's why it's decaying and dying. But nonetheless, I have this body, this temple of God, that I can use to move into my ascension. Everything in my experience, whether outwardly or inwardly, is helping me move towards that ascension. And really, that is this God self that's moving through the soul. That is what's providing the opportunity. Because its perfection is here. We've just misunderstood what that perfection is, and that has caused this experience because that's what we put in the mind. Remember, the mind only knows what we put into it. That's it. The mind knows nothing else. The mind creates nothing. It just projects what we put into it. We're the ones that decide that. Now, we haven't known that for thousands and thousands of years. We've been just experiencing what we experience. And we didn't realize that that was all coming from world information. We were taught that what we see, taste, touch, and smell is God created. It's actually not God created. It is an image of God's creation, but it's not God's creation because it's information from the world, which says this is a material universe. Well, God never created a material universe with limiting laws. His spiritual universe, which really is this universe, has no limits. And so we have to understand that and thank and have gratitude for every opportunity and understand and forgive also. So anything that seems to be malfunctioning in the so-called world that we're experiencing, we forgive it. Whether it be a pain in the body or a thought of fear.
I forgave my hair yesterday morning.
Well, there you go.
I walked out in the kitchen and Lance was there and I go, I forgive it. Because when I said this,
Yeah, so
my hair.
anything we perceive as being wrong, it's our duty to forgive it, and that is prayer. Jesus said, forgive 70 times 7. And the reason he told us that is because it's prayer. It's talking to your God self. And that is moving to develop your relationship with your God self. And so we forgive everything that we come in contact with that seems, for some reason, maybe everything looks fine, but you know underneath it's decaying, and so you forgive it in the understanding that that was what the world told us, and I, in my ignorance, agreed with it and accepted it as a reality, and now it's manifested, and I have to live with it for the moment, but it's temporary, and now I can change that. And now with my relationship with God, I can say, oh, that's not God's creation. God's creation is perfect. God's body never dies. These bodies that we call physical don't need to die. They never were developed to die. It's just that we have been putting death in the mind, and that is what has projected, and that is what we experience. See how it really is very simple. But we got a transition. There's a transition period, and some people do it faster than others, but it's a matter of doing the work. And that is praying without ceasing. That is having gratitude for everything that's in your life and everything you perceive as being out of order in some way, you forgive it. And you still have gratitude for it because you had the opportunity to learn to forgive. You had the opportunity to have gratitude. And so we don't have gratitude for things that are wrong, really. We're not thanking God that he gave us suffering because he didn't give us suffering. We're realizing God didn't give us suffering in any form. He didn't give us any malfunctions at all. Everything he created is perfect. And we are the ones that have put this human creation into motion, and we're experiencing it. And so we're telling ourselves, okay, I understand now that I'm the one that allowed this to happen. And so I may not have gratitude. I'm not going to have gratitude for somebody who goes out and murders somebody. I'm not going to have gratitude because my bone broke, But what I'm going to do is I'm going to forgive those things in the understanding that they were created out of ignorance, and really I'm the one, and I'm going to forgive myself because I'm the one that allowed them in. I did it ignorantly. I didn't know how to use the mind, and I was just letting things come into my mind and accepting them and agreeing with them, and now I'm having this experience, so I can't blame God for it. I can't blame anyone else for it, really. So I forgive them. I forgive them if they accepted it and agreed with it. And I forgive myself for accepting and agreeing with it. And that allowed them to come into my experience. And so that is part of it, So it's not just when you're sitting down. It's when you're, developing this relationship. So,
I just discovered something.
okay.
You only read the first 2 pages
Right.
of the 5-page
Yeah.
poem. The very last page, you think you're writing this to your God self. This is God answering you. I don't know if you ever read it that closely.
Yeah.
This is God answering. I have been waiting for you.
Right.
I am thrilled you have come to walk with us. I am thrilled you heard the trumpets, and you did hear the trumpets. That was another story.
That's another story.
It really happened. I'm thrilled you arose and walked to us, for you are one of us and are part of us, and this gift of the flaming angel is for you. God answered you, but you
Yeah.
wrote it.
Right. It's what you hear when you learn to turn within, and you hear God will respond to you. When you're sincere with God, God will be sincere with you. God wants you to walk with the angels. God wants you to walk with the immortals. And so God is extremely happy when you come to him and begin to develop this relationship. Now, another part of prayer is calling God to come into your life, calling God to come into the outer expressions. When you wake up in the morning, before you even get out of bed, you should acknowledge God's self, God presence, or what we call my divine light, and say, come into my life this day. Be my life, and let my life be your life. Be my words, and let my words be your words. Be my thoughts, and let my thoughts be your thoughts. Start your day with talking to your inner God before you get out of bed, so that immediately you've drawn yourself in where your true life is. Your true life is invisible and is the greater part of you. And so if you get up and just start moving around, it's going to take you a while before you realize that your God self is with you. It's going to take a little bit more effort. But if you do it right away, before you even get out of bed, then you've already started the relationship, and then try and let that continue throughout the day. And then when you sit down to your meditation, really a good way to meditate is to start with prayer. Pray to God. Say, either have a sit-down talk with God, like, why is my foot sore? I don't like that. It's not nice. And, and he'll say, well, why did you let it get sore? Why did you do it? You're the one that did it, not me. At first that's a little hard to understand. God will reveal it to you in a way that you can understand it for your current state of consciousness, in your current unfoldment of consciousness. And so that it will help you move forward. But you have to be sincere, and if you start your meditation with prayer, then you're directing yourself towards your God self. And that, once you go into meditation, then you're kind of like already ready to do it. Instead of having to develop that once you get into meditation. So prayer, first you speak to God, and then you calm down and listen to God and listen within. And so that is a good way to do it. But the prayer continues. Once you come out of that meditation, understand, really, meditation is a preparation for you to get up and live your life in the presence of God, in the awareness that God is with you, in the awakeness of how life operates and how life is perfect, even though we didn't understand it before. Once you establish this relationship with God, you'll begin to understand God has always been operating in us perfectly. And it was us who was putting the wrong things in the mind or allowing the wrong things to come in the mind, and we were having these awkward experiences. And now we can change that. And God's going to let us know that. And the more you meditate, and so your meditation, the preparation for your day really, and it helps to have meditations throughout the day where you actually stop, get still, go within, and listen, even if it's only for 30 seconds or a minute or so, you know.
Don't do it while driving.
Patty says don't do it while driving. That's probably good advice, you know. You don't want to run into a brick wall. So, but, you know, throughout the day.
That wasn't my fault. I was meditating.
So,
what's a good first prayer for someone that's just, you've been doing this 40 years?
Well, yeah, there's no, you can't say to somebody, this is how you pray, because really it's an individual thing. It's a personal experience. And my best advice for beginners is just to be sincere, open, be yourself, tell the truth about what you're really feeling, I don't like that person hurt me, you know. What?
And then you see how silly you sound.
Well, eventually you will see how silly that sounds, because you'll know, oh, I put that in the mind and then I experienced it.
And then I was so upset.
So it's not really their fault, you know. It was me who was sitting by, not doing anything, and that is what caused the problem. That what allowed the world to dominate my mind when I should have been bringing God experiences into the mind. That's what the mind's for. So I'm the one that is in control of what goes into the mind. And so, you know, yeah, you start, just be sincere. You know, let your prayers be sincere. You know, ask God, is there such a thing as a God? What is God? You know, what's your purpose? Why are you here or not? Are you off somewhere else? You know, whatever comes to your mind, you know, but just be honest, sincere, and open and truthful, you know. God will open up to you as much as you open up to God. That's the bottom line. And so then you have that. You have prayer, which is this 24/7 project. And you have meditation where you go within and find silence and listen to your inner God as often as you can throughout the day. And when you your meditation should be over when you finally hear, I am with you. I am here. When you hear that, get up and start your day. That's it. That's all you need. You just need to hear God's confirmation that He's with you. That's all meditation really needs to be. And the more you do it, the deeper you'll go within, and the more silent you'll be, and the more God will talk to you and reassure you. And eventually you'll invite God into your world, and God will start coming into your world. Actually, God's already in your world, already active, already doing His thing, but it doesn't work in your life until you become aware of it and awake to it and start realizing what it is, and start really realizing how to operate the mind. The mind is your tool to have your experience. So, God gave that to us. He gave us a mind to experience God. And we just haven't known that, and we haven't known how to do that. And so now that's what we're learning, and we learn that through prayer and meditation and practicing the principles. Now the principles are, these are the things that God tells you. Now at first you might have to listen to them in a lecture or read them in a book, and they're methods for you to use so that your prayers and meditations become more effective. And for instance, at some point, God's going to say, I am the only power. There is no other power. And, as we move along, we begin to realize that. Really? Well, it seems like there's powers out there. But then when you start to realize, the only thing out there is what I allowed into the mind, and then that projected. And then I sensed it with my 5 senses and had the experience. Once you realize that part of it, then you realize, that's right. There are no powers out there. God gave me the power of choice. God gave me the power to give. And either I give things of the world or I give God. And if I give God, I receive God. If I give things from the world, I receive the things of the world. And you start to see, there is no power. So when you see powers, when you experience powers, once you learn that there's no powers out there, you recognize it and call it out to yourself. And you say, that's acting as a power. It's acting as if it could do harm to me, but I'm invisible. I am not the outer expressions. So it can't really hurt the I that I am. Even if it can hurt this body, that's not really true either. Because that can only hurt if I put into the mind that bodies can get hurt. If I learn to put into the mind bodies never hurt, then my body will never hurt. Your body will never hurt, because we learned what to put into the mind. And so using these principles helps us dissolve those things that are coming in from the mind. Those things are coming from this world mind, and there's more discussion about that in the previous tapes on form and soul and God. But these things come into the mind, we can burn them away with the presence of God. The presence of God comes as a fiery spirit. And it will help us burn those things away, but we are the ones as souls that have to recognize that the idea that there's powers in the world is false. That there's laws of the world, and those are false. The only laws there are God's laws. And so as we experience these situations, somebody comes to us and says, please help me, then we say, sure, I'll help you. But then we go within and we go, God never created anything that needed help. That is something that I've allowed into my mind. And I forgive it. I recognize it's a non-power. It has no power of itself. It's only when I allowed it to be power that gave it power. And I did that yesterday, and now I'm experiencing it today. But now I'm putting new things into my mind. I'm putting God things into my mind. And those are going to take manifestation. So I'm not worried about you acting as a power anymore, because I recognize you're not a real power. We're acting as a power because I allowed it, because I proclaimed that there were powers in the world, that the world had powers and laws that I was under. And now I understand I'm under God, I'm with God, and God is with me, and therefore there are no powers. So you practice these principles throughout the day. That's just one example, and there's many of them. And it's basically knowing the truth. And it's like Jesus said, know the truth and the truth will make you free. It's not about thinking the truth, it's about knowing it. And that's where the meditation comes in, that it reassures you that there are no powers in the world, that God is the only power operating. And eventually you begin to understand that. And so you work through it. So you might have to at first use your thinking to remind yourself of it, but it's the feeling of it within that you get in your meditation that begins to dissolve it. And then, so this is another tool we have to transition out of this mortal living into our immortal living.
You have in your chapter 16, you have a beautiful summation, but you also have a practice of what you recommend. Find a place and time where you can sit in quiet for a while. Do you think that would be something you want to share?
Okay.
Well, definitely that.
Okay, this is one practice, and this is in the book, You Are Divinely Made. Okay, so find a place and time where you can sit in quiet for a while. Go back to before the world, before time, before creation. Go back to the great void, the great silence, a place of perfect stillness, perfect clarity. Close your eyes, then imagine the room you're in is God. Invisible, omnipresent life. Imagine there is no creation, only God is there, with God being omnipresent. The substance of God is everywhere where God is. There is no place or space where God is not. It fills the entire room, the everything. Now, suppose the mind of God decides to express as a man. Certainly, when God thought it, it was created. Yet it cannot be outside of God because God is everywhere in his room, all existence. Man could not be outside of God because the only substance there is God's substance, with it being everywhere. So wherever man appears is where God is. They can never be separated because God is all there is. Okay, so that is just one example that you can use meditations like that to start to contemplate, and that brings us to another area called contemplation, where you think these things through. When you hear the idea that there's no powers in the world, you have to really go start with your intellect and go, how is that possible? How is it that there's no powers out in the world? You know, and exercises like that one we just read begin to help you understand that God is everywhere. There can't be anything imperfect if God is everywhere. If God appears as man, then man is perfect. And therefore, there's no powers that can act against him. And so, contemplation about everything, you know, what is God? You know, what is soul? What is man? What is body? Contemplation is another tool we use. So all these things, we're just covering all these things briefly so that you can kind of get started moving out of mortality. For those of you that have chosen, that want to live in heaven here on earth in your now experience, then these are things that you can do to start moving out of the mortality into the immortality. And it doesn't have to take forever. It doesn't have to take a long time. It can be done in a couple of years if you're determined enough, or a couple of lifetimes, but you have to be steady at it, you have to be consistent, and you have to keep working at it. It's a 24/7 activity. You have to become awake in your life, awake to everything that's going on, and begin to understand its meaning and how it's here to help you move towards your ascension. Okay, I
So
think
it's-
that's the basics for this video.
Okay. Yes, I think you
It's-
did.
Patty has
Great.
something else, it looks like.
I guess that when you were talking about start looking at things with new eyes. But here, from the source of all, in the depth of infinity, I think that would be lovely. People would love to hear that.
Okay.
It's a perfect summation.
Okay, so we'll end it with this. From the source of all, in the depths of infinity, comes all which is. May we dip into this vast lake of love, watching it transform all in our experience. May it touch us in a way to gain the courage to reach for it, bringing forth its mighty beauty, unequal in any human thinking. Okay. Very
Very
good.
beautiful, sweetie.
Thanks, sweetie.
Thank you, honey.
Okay, all right, so thank you for being with us. We hope this is helpful for you. It should be the kingdom of God. This whole process is really simple. All these religions and all this stuff has made it seem complicated. And even though there's all these thousands of aspects to each of us, it can be simplified in a way that can help us move out into the God self and acting out from the God self and bringing God into the mind so we can experience the Garden of Eden right here, right now. Okay? All right. Lovely being with you. Have a
Very
great
nice.
day.
Bless you. Stay strong.
Stay strong.
at the helm.